The Spot Healing Brush tool is a wonderful tool for removing blemishes in Photoshop. So what's the Spot Healing Brush tool all about? Well, basically it's used to remove objects in your photo, and a lot of people use this to clean up skin when we're talking about pimples and things like that. But you can also use it, let's say you have a bunch of trash in the background of your photo, you can use the Spot Healing Brush tool to get rid of that as well. So we're going to show you a couple of different options to use with the Spot Healing Brush tool and how this differs from the regular healing brush tool. Alright, we got a great episode. Let's jump into Photoshop. So here's our image, and you can download this in the course materials. So let's hit J for our Spot Healing Brush tool, or you can simply click right here. Looks like a band-aid with a couple of dots right around it. So the Spot Healing Brush tool is really great for removing blemishes, and we've got a couple snowflakes and things like that in our hair. We're going to use this tool to get rid of those things. Now, one of my favorite things about the Spot Healing Brush tool is you can have this option right up here at the top where it says sample all layers. What that means is you can do this on a new layer. So let's go ahead and create a new layer here. You can see I've got a blank layer. We've got sample all layers checked. Now let's go ahead and start removing some of these things. We're going to zoom in, and let's just say we want to get rid of some of these snowflakes. I'm going to simply paint right over top of some of these areas, and the Spot Healing Brush tool is going to basically figure out other areas in your photo that look similar and replace them. There we go, allowing everything to blend back together again. Now, again, the reason I like this tool is because you can have sample all layers turned on, so I can turn this layer off and on. I'm not actually affecting the original image. So for instance, if I do something that I don't like let's say I'm right over here and I'm like, oh yeah, that looked really great. And then I come back and I'm, looking at this with my eyes instead of, my eyes closed, and I'm like, oh, that actually looks horrible. You can simply just hit E for the eraser tool and erase that away. So let's just erase that away. There we go, and we're back to good. So being able to do this on its own layer is really, really cool. Okay, now next with our Spot Healing Brush tool, we have a few different modes, and I recommend just keeping this in normal mode most of the time. It's just going to work the best there. But for instance, I'm going to click on our background layer here and zoom in. You can't use your different modes on a new layer. You have to be on a layer that actually has an object on there. So normal is again what I would recommend, but for instance, if we wanted to set to, let's see what this looks like with normal if I try to get rid of a nostril. There we go, it gets rid of it and everything looks good and looks like it should, except she doesn't have a nostril. Now let's go to something like screen, and I'm going to paint right over here. Okay, and you're going to see basically it's going to get rid of the darker areas. So if you do have something that you'd like to, like this darker area inside of her mouth, there we go, you can get rid of those areas and it's still going to try to sample around. So this is, in my opinion, it's a little bit less predictable. Not only that, but you got to do this on the background layer. So I just recommend leaving this in normal blending mode. Now, the next option we have here is content aware, and this is where I would recommend leaving this tool. I leave this in content aware all of the time. And the reason is, it basically looks around your image to try to find something similar to wherever you're painting. So let's click on back on our new layer. There we go. And I'm just going to simply paint right over this hair. How many times have you seen hair in front of a person's face on an image? All the time, right? You can simply paint right over top of the hair and it's going to go away. Not only that, but it's going to know, check this out. As I zoom in here, I can just simply paint right like that. It's going to know that this piece of hair continues right like that, and it's going to keep that. Look at that. How cool is that? It actually kept that hair right there. So it has a really good idea of what you want to get rid of, and it does a really great job of basically putting everything back in its place. So that's our content aware, and I recommend leaving it there. Next we have create texture, which basically just makes a texture out of wherever you paint. And I'm going to just paint a larger area here so you get an idea. So for this create texture, this is if you want to add a texture to a certain area. Let's just paint over there and let go. You're going to see basically just adds a texture to that area that actually pulls from your image. And I haven't run across too many circumstances when this is something that is beneficial or something that I actually want to do. But you can do it with create texture. And as soon as this loads, you'll see what we did. Yeah, so basically it just loaded the exact same texture right over top of your photo. In this case, it looks like a little kind of like dot matrix type of thing. And again, not something that I'm gonna do most of the time, but that's here within the same tool as well. Now, proximity match basically tries to find areas that are right near wherever you paint. So whereas content aware, if I'm like right over here, content aware may pull areas from like here or here or here or here. Proximity match is going to do this really close to wherever you're painting. So for instance, if you're working on a person's face, they have some, like the pores on your face, like right here, is really different from your forehead, right? Like the pores on your nose and cheeks, they're a little bit bigger. So you'd want to use proximity match there so it wouldn't try to like get textures from different parts of your face and then your face textures wouldn't line up. So if you are working on an area that like requires that your sample's right around there, I'd highly recommend proximity match. In this case, this image is not detailed enough to really see that much texture, so I would recommend keeping it in content aware, and again, that's where I have it pretty much all of the time. So if you do find an area, like earlier I did this eyebrow thing and we laughed at how bad it was. If you do have something like that, you can actually just zoom in and do small little bits at a time. So I would recommend, painting little bits. There we go. Just doing little areas like this and kind of taking this step by step. All right. And you can see we can still get the same job done with the content aware healing brush tool. Okay, so if it doesn't work by painting one big selection, just try zooming in and doing a bunch of small little strokes. So using this exact tool, we can go and we can clean up our backgrounds, stuff like this. I kind of like that there's snow in this image. It gives it a little bit more character, but for an example, it looks great that we can just simply get rid of all the snow and the stray hair and things like that in front of our subject's face. Okay, now here's a difference between the spot healing brush tool and the regular healing brush tool. The spot healing brush tool is going to choose a sample point for you. So literally all you have to do is paint over your image and it's going to try to figure out what to replace in that area. Now the regular healing brush tool, right here, healing brush tool, if I just create a new layer and start clicking, it's going to say, oh, you have to define your source point. So the regular healing brush tool, you hold Alt or Option to sample an area, like I could sample this nostril for instance, and then paint right over here and it would try to blend that nostril into her face, which looks absolutely disgusting, but that's what it does. You can choose your sample point for you. So if you ever find that the spot healing brush tool just continues to choose the wrong sample point, if you're like, I'm trying to, clear out someone's face and it keeps sampling their hair and putting hair texture on their face, that's a great time to use the regular healing brush tool. Okay guys, well, that's our overview of the spot healing brush tool. In this video, we showed you how to use the spot healing brush tool to get rid of objects in your photos. And my suggestion is always to make sure you create a new layer, keep sample all layers checked, and make sure you're in content aware. This is going to work 90% of the time, and you're going to be good to go. Thanks so much guys. We'll see you in the next video.